the fifth session. May I now call for the fifth session? Is everyone ready? Right. So the new buzzword doing the rounds is startup, and manufacturing is not an exception in this case. The theme of the next session, which is the fifth session, is providing solutions to MSME manufacturing sector by digital startup ecosystem. I'm sure this promises to be quite interesting, and it's a short, crisp session. May I request Mr. Nishant Sagar, CEO and MD, Diana K. Automotive Stampings Private Limited, to please come and chair the session. Thank you. We have two panelists, Mr. Amit Gupta, head of Tata Nexark, and Mr. Nitin Jain, co-founder and CBO of business. Mr. Nitin Jain, please, and Mr. Amit Gupta. A small request, but a very necessary one. Mr. Sagar, as you chair the session, this session is for half an hour. And since question answer is also there, may I please request your panelists to be very brief and crisp. After all, we are talking about digital startup ecosystem. Sure. Digital does not get into too much of doing. Be crisp. Thank you so much.
We'll take care of that. Okay. So with the disclaimer given to all three of us, I start off by thanking the Chamber of giving Nitin, me and Amit this opportunity to discuss on a very key aspect of digitization for MSMEs. I've been here since morning, and I think it's been a very lovely session where a lot of speakers have spoken about some aspects of MSME which were completely new to me. Of course, I could mirror a lot of thoughts. I think we'll start off in interest of time. I would probably slightly change from what Madam has suggested. I think we'll try to make it a more interactive session. I represent the auto component industry, and I'm sure there'll be quite a lot of my colleagues here in the audience as well. So I'll try my best to represent our problems and issues and concerns that we have regarding digitization. And then I would like to have Nitin and Amit, who are more experts on the matter of digitization, to kind of share. So to set the context, I think I'll briefly introduce. I represent a company which is into sheet metal stampings. We've been a 36-year-old company providing automotive components as a tier 2. We operate in the automotive domain, and most of our business is exports. We roughly do about 50% of our business exports. Being a 36, 37-year-old company, and also being in the automotive domain where there's a lot of pressure on being competitive, a lot of pressure on being fit to market, with agility in bringing in new product development. I think one of the very key aspects is that auto components, like a lot of my speakers earlier mentioned, have a lot of issues, whether it is steel availability, whether it's the cost pressures, whether it's availability of skilled manpower, availability of cash flow. And in all this humdrum of issues, sometimes the core of what we need to look at for the future, which is digitization in this aspect, kind of gets lost. So I have a couple of points which I hope I also represent a lot of my colleagues from the automotive component and MSME industry. I think one of the problems is there's a technology ignorance. A lot of us as CEOs and MDs do know what we are into, and we do understand the overall customer relationship management and all the key tools to get a business running. But when it comes to digitization, there's a lot of ignorance that the MSMEs have. That's something that I think needs to be worked upon. Second is, as a MSME, we are always very, very cautious and careful when we invest money. We do a lot of diligence. One of our friends asked, how do we change a bank? We think like a zillion times before we change our banks. So when we put in a new machine or a new press or a new VMC or a machining center, I think there's a lot of diligence that we do. Now, in the case of digitization, unfortunately, it seems that a proof of concept is not very readily available. So you do not see a lot of products in the market which you can just say, yes, this is something that can be pick and placed into my industry. And hence, a lot of the owners and the CEOs tend to take a step back in certain areas. I would definitely say in MSME also, it's full of creativity. I think we have lots of entrepreneurs and people who are running MSMEs where they've done a lot of digitization internally, not waiting for others to develop. Uh, I could say there are two types of people in our industry. Either they're the leaders or the laggers. There are leaders who have not waited for people to come out and tell what the industry 4.0 solutions could be, but on a very basic level, they've already implemented some things. Uh, so yes, so coming on to the challenges, like I said, there's an ignorance. There is not a very strong proof of concept available. In the humdrum of a lot of other issues that MSME faces, digitization is something that always gets a stepmotherly treatment. So these are a couple of points which I feel don't allow MSMEs to come in. So probably I would start by asking Nitin here to share from off business on how could this be bridged and how you could use this today's forum to enlighten me and my fellow colleagues here in aspects of digitization.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nishant, for succinctly putting across the problems. But one point I would like to disagree that SMEs are not necessarily ignorant. They are untrusting of technology, right? So what happens is that if you go to Amazon or a Flipkart, now aap aag band karke you buy a t-shirt or whatever you want to buy, right? A mobile phone or something, because you're trusting of that technology. You're fully trusting. Now imagine buying 50 lakhs worth of steel, which is about approximately 80-90 tons from the digital platform. You will not do it. It's impossible. So you need a face on the other side. You need a voice on the other side for you to be able to trust technology, right? So it's transparency and trust that we have to solve for, not ignorance. People are not ignorant. They're using WhatsApp, which is the biggest technological advancement that we've seen in the past 10 years, according to me. That people, like even the farmers, have come onto WhatsApp. They interact with a lot of traders on WhatsApp, whether it's in Hindi, English, doesn't matter. But they are using technology. What we have to solve for is how do you increase the trust and the transparency more than anything else, and get them to really trust the prices and so on and so forth, right? So many of us are not really trying to solve that. Many of us are just going straight to transactions. Let's solve for transactions. Many of us are not trying to bridge the trust gap first, get the engagement going with technology. Once you start doing that, it becomes a lot easier to get the consumer or the end consumer, like an SME or a MSME, to start transacting with you, right? That's where the bridge will come into play. That's where people will start believing what you have to offer once you start solving for the trust gap. So so a few things that we have done to build the trust gap is that we're not we although so just to tell you about us, we are a 20,000 crore company. We started in 2015 September odd. We're doing a lot of transactions, but in technology, we are just getting engagement done. We are not pushing people to go and transact with us. We are just giving information for absolutely free. We are trying to build up that trust relationship, and 6 months, 1 year down the line, I know once they start trusting the technology, they will start transacting digitally as well, like they do on Amazon, Flipkart. So that's just my 2 cents. So that trust gap is something that we have to bridge.
Great. So I think I agree with you completely, Nitin. Confidence evoking, whether it's a banking need or whether it's a steel supplier, that's definitely something that SMEs need to look into. So Amit, what are your views on this?
Hi, so thanks Nishant for the setting up the context pretty well. So that was very helpful. So just a quick background on Tata Business Hub. I lead one of the businesses at Tata Business Hub. We are a part of the Tata Sons fraternity, and we are very early on the block. I mean, we're just about 2 years old. Our endeavor is to empower emerging businesses, as we call them. Any business with turnover of more than 1 crore, and we've spoken in the whole course of the day about importance of SMEs, contribution to GDP, etc. Our endeavor is to say how can we accelerate growth for them, how can we build solutions which can be focused on growing their business, how can we build solutions which can help them optimize their processes, how can we build solutions that can help solve for the problems that we face, right? So I think I'll kind of corroborate on what Nitin said, that trust is one definite angle. Obviously it is there, but one key differentiator, B2C, we know where we are, right? Amazon, Zepto, so we've discussed them in the day as well. Difference what I see between B2B, B2C is but obvious that a transaction is not as straightforward. high involvement, yes. High value, like Nitin rightly pointed out. None of us are going to buy a Mercedes online despite doing that the standard product, right? Everybody will still want to go touch, feel, all of it. Same holds true here. It's a very high involvement product. You want to be assured that what I'm buying from you is the right product. Quality is assured. It is competitively priced. And if anything goes wrong, I'm taken care of. So that confidence you need in the center, the platform that you're coming in back with. To add to that, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of variances of steel, for example, in itself, right? So how do I know that I'm going to get the right product? So that confidence building, whether I'm getting the right price, prices are volatile, they change every day. Even on a given day, I can go to 10 sellers, my variability could be very high. So therefore, transparency to that extent, that's what digital brings to the table. So it's about sampling, get your sense of comfort, try with a small share of wallet. If it works, grow, great. And that's the way I would kind of envisage it forward.
Sure. So I think one of the words we heard in the earlier sessions was that even our business is a touch and feel business. So a lot of our friends would agree that typically whether it's the quality processes or whether it's the end of the line inspections, a lot of the work is considered done once we have a touch and feel to the steel and to the components that we make. So maybe Nitin, how do you think that a digital platform of buying material in this case could bridge the gap of quality, which also is a very important aspect of evoking confidence in a buyer?
Yeah, so obviously QA, QC remains a very, very, very important aspect of the entire supply chain. So, so you have to build that that expertise from the beginning. So you can't ignore it. You can't just say, I'm just going to do tech digitization, I'm going to ignore that aspect. Now, fortunately for us, what helps is that because we're doing about 100 crores of transactions per day and 30-40 crores of just steel per day. So we built up that expertise, we built up that QA, QC, so that and we're building artificial intelligence around solving for the fact that you don't need a lot of manpower, and automatically through vision and through other technology you'll be able to identify what will get passed for a particular customer, what will not work for a particular customer. Like you just have images of a TMT bar or something and the amount of rust on it or whether the redness is actually rust or not. So there is a lot of artificial intelligence that is yet to be done. Like for crops, like I think more than steel, it's working for crops, it's working on the farming side because we are there in the agri sector as well. So, you just have a drone actually survey the crops and identify how much yield there is, how good the crop is, whether it's infested or not. Now, why can't we have the same thing for steel, right? So we are trying to work on those particular technologies where we are trying to automate the QA QC processes where when at the time of loading, there is probably a QC person with a camera and just detecting stuff which he normally can't detect with the naked eye. So that's what we are experimenting with. It's a work in progress, but this is what we are working on using technology. So yeah, so we are setting up these processes, and because of the data that we already have, right, of what works, what doesn't work, we are already feeding into the system. Now listen, this works, this doesn't work. So system has already got a lot of data, and it trains itself over a period of time to identify what may work, what may not work, etc. So that's the power of technology that we're incorporating. But yeah, there has to be a lot of hard work done before. You have to figure out what will work, what will not work, because it's important. I mean, it's not a small value transaction that you can just send back. Logistics itself runs into a couple of lakhs for every truckload. So it's not easy. I mean, so you have to really, really be careful about how you deploy stuff. It's not an easy fix, but it takes months of efforts to get that right.
Okay. Thanks, Nitin. So I think another aspect which comes to my mind is that, when you have a new concept or a new change in your processes, like there's a change of our procurement process if we really have to go digital, or even if it comes to bringing in change into our factory shop floors by implementing connected machines or having data analytics instead of having a document or a docket report. This calls for a big change, and it's a mindset change that not just starts from the top or probably from the most lowest level. Through the entire chain of command or from the entire organization, it has to come through. Otherwise, changes are very difficult to bring into an organization. So another point here was on further to taking Nitin's point, that a lot of times SMEs within themselves also connect with each other and try to get a lot of lessons learned and things gone right and wrong. Like I definitely have a lot of my friends who are in my competing business with whom we do talk to each other, whether it is taking the credibility of a machine supplier, whether we want to know what are the pains for a certain ABC supplier or a new kind of a logistics partner that we're working for. So in a way, the SME fraternity works very closely there. It may work in pockets, in known circles, but we do talk to each other and tend to get a lot of lessons learned. So on that point, Amit, how do you think Tata Nexa could bridge that and bring all of these various SME individuals together on your platform?
So yeah, I think where we are today, we are about 200,000 EBs strong. So that's the kind of power we have today on the platform. What certainly as processes we need to build. So building on the point that Nitin also mentioned a while back, right? As a platform for steel, for example, we are not manufacturers. We are leaning on a whole lot of players, or I would say OEMs who do this far better than what any one of us can even imagine to do, right? So it's about building a curated set of suppliers through a certain set of processes, validate whether we're doing the right things, whether we are getting the right products, and then layer it back with a whole lot of feedback. Like you said, reviews, right? The point when you said I speak to a fellow colleague for logistics, or I speak to my fellow partners for a feedback, it's nothing but review towards that particular person or towards that particular transaction. How do we capture that feedback, build that back into technology, and kind of start prioritizing it as a high review rating, similar to what you would see on any marketplace. So those are capabilities that technology can bring in at certain point in time, but obviously it needs scale, it needs that quality of data, it needs that accumulation of information coming together to be processed in a meaningful way and then projected out before it really starts making impact for that one transaction for an EB to look into. But yes, I think technology has the flavor to do all of it.
And Nitin, if you were to probably share about 2 or 3 top reasons why conventional purchasing is not shifting to your kind of marketplace digitized, what would you feel are the major challenges for people like me and for some of my colleagues?
You know, conventional, again, one major reason is the large ticket size. Now, second major reason is that people want to compare a lot of prices, right? Now, if you're buying stuff worth 50 lakh rupees, or even if you, let's say, taking the example of Amit, you're buying a Mercedes, you would want to compare 3 or 4 models. You would want to compare probably a BMW and an Audi as well. So similarly, when you're buying 50 lakhs worth of steel, you'll probably want to compare prices from at least 5 or 7 vendors, and there's a person dedicated to actually doing that. Now that person also wants to justify his job, right? Now the MD doesn't have that kind of time to go and talk to these 10 vendors, and you know, the person sitting out there has to justify getting all the codes, putting in an Excel sheet and showing it to the MD, and the MD feels satisfied that a lot of work has been done into it, because the MD is not trusting of technology that exists, right? So is the purchase manager. Purchase manager is also not trusting of the technology that exists, that whether automatically through digital media I'll be able to get prices that is doable, that is transactable, right? You can always get prices from 50 different places on the internet. You type in steel prices on Google, you'll at least get 100 results. Now, how many of those results would be actually doable? Answer is zero. So you know, that trusting of technology is not there. So there has to be a media where you actually type in something and you get the right prices that you actually trust, and not one price. You get multiple prices that you are able to compare and feel satisfied that yes, I am getting the best price for my money. Because again, as I'm saying, 50 lakhs is a huge amount of money. I mean, for anyone, right? For small business, big business, for an individual, doesn't matter. So you have to get that trust factor in, and that's missing completely. Like Google is full of Google is full of random quotations and this thing, right? So it doesn't give you the accurate sort of value. If you search for something, it doesn't even give you come close to giving. Let's say you search for Tata Saria 12 where Google give you an accurate result. Answer is no, because Google hasn't been built into getting those result queries out in a very accurate manner. So you know, that's what we are trying to build, and that's why we are trying to bridge the gap, right? So, and we're doing it for Bharat, for natural language, whether it's Marathi or Hindi or English. So we are getting that gap bridge, but we're not pushing for transaction. We're just pushing for trust. That's all. We're just pushing for people to use the pricing to get a trust that yes, this is accurate pricing and this will work.
Sure, I think I agree with Nitin completely, but I think what another piece here is that our customers, so you know, if you look at the overall chain, it's the OEM who's dictating a lot of the prices, and eventually then the tier 1s and tier 2s and 3s have to follow suit. So my also take would be that, you know, if a company like us who's a tier 2 needs to get into a digitized concept of purchasing, but I guess it also has to be considered by the original equipment manufacturer as well as the you know, the tier above you, because a lot of times like Nitin mentioned, there is no apples to apples comparison. You know, my customer could come and say that the price is like 10 rupees lower. It could be a spot price. It would not be considering the credit terms. It could be a coil material versus we procuring in cut to size. So it's a very generic discussion that customers also do. So I think with ventures like yours, it'll be good if even the top level customers start getting on board with these things, and eventually it'll be a nice trickle down effect. So I've been given a hard stop already. So I think Nitin and Amit, we've got a privilege of having the shortest session. I hope you could make it interesting for you guys. Looking forward to meeting you and your questions probably over the next tea and dinner session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen. I must really say it was the crispiest session I've ever been able to attend. And a very interesting one at that. Short and sweet. Okay, may I invite Mr. Amol Chitnis, CEO and MD, Reliable Autotech, to please hand over the mementos to the chair and to the panelists, please. To Mr. Nishant Sagar for chairing the session. To Mr. Amit Gupta. And to Mr. Nitin Jain. To Mr. Nitin Jain.